Hi, this is just a quick introduction to working with Keypoint Interactive and Keypoint Connect. In this video, I'll go over enabling the Keypoint tab, configuring your Keypoint Connect virtual keypads, and inserting a question into your presentation. Let's get started. As you can see, I've opened a PowerPoint presentation that already has a couple of slides in it. Once you install the Keypoint Interactive software, you should see this Keypoint tab up here on the PowerPoint ribbon. The first step is to click this Click to Enable button, which will go ahead and bring up all of the features for Keypoint Interactive. You can see that my copy has already been activated. If you see demo mode here, you can drop down the submenu under the support button and enter your license code. There's some functionality there for that, as well as instructions that came with your software for getting it activated. Keypoint also popped up what we call the transceiver configuration. This window will look different depending on which keypad style came with your system. Today, we're going to be using the Keypoint Connect virtual keypads, which is our web-based keypad. If you were just building a presentation or editing one, you could just exit right out of this window without doing anything and go ahead and continue working on it. It would stay polling disabled because you wouldn't actually be voting at that point. But we are going to go ahead and vote. So I want to make sure that I provide a meeting ID here, and I've provided demo as my meeting ID. That Keypoint Connect ID is unique to you. Most people go with something related to their company or conference and stick with that same ID for all of their Keypoint presentations. And your recently used IDs will be reserved exclusively for your license. The number it reserves is based on your subscription level, but the minimum is 2. As you can see, there's a couple different login types here. The request name will prompt participants to provide their name as they connect, and Keypoint will use that name in the participant roster, which is stored inside the presentation. Participant ID will prompt the user for a unique ID in order to connect. Participant IDs must be assigned in advance, and using this login method requires that you have a predefined Keypoint roster. This ensures a one-to-one relationship between the voter and the person you've identified in that roster. It also prevents any additional participants from connecting to the meeting or responding. For this video, I'm just going to go ahead and stay with the anonymous, and it'll add participants to the roster as I connect virtual keypads. The participant count allows you to tell the Connect server how many participants you expect. In situations where your license allows for multiple simultaneous sessions, this number is actually how you provision the number of participants you need for your meeting out of the overall pool of virtual keypads. You can also provide a password. The meeting ID kind of serves as a password because it is unique. So it's up to you whether or not you want to use that. I'm going to go ahead and leave that empty. And the charts sharing feature is there for meetings where you may not want to be sharing your slideshow with everyone. In those circumstances, like a teleconference, for example, you can enable this feature, and Keypoint will actually display a little bar graph of the voting results in the virtual keypads. Typically, participants see all that information displayed in your PowerPoint slideshow, so it's not very often that that feature gets enabled. Once I click Start Meeting, it'll connect to the Keypoint Connect server and initialize my remote keypads. That's it. I give it a meeting ID, and I click Start Meeting. This is my little 2-slideshow presentation here, and I'm going to add a polling slide to it by clicking on the question button. Now you can see that it inserted a question slide. I don't really want it there, so I'm going to drag it down here so that it's down here. It inserted a question slide with the chart on it. Had I wanted to insert a different type of polling slide, such as a question without a chart slide, I can drop down this menu and I can select from the options that are here. Depending again on your licensing level, as well as the type of keypads that you have, those options will be different depending on the functionality that is available to you. Once the question's been inserted, you just basically click in the little boxes and type like you would on any other kind of slide. And bear with me here as I throw in some content. Okay, so as soon as I click off of the text box, Keypoint is actually going to read what I typed, and it's going to label my bar graph. Now, these choices are a little wordy to be used as labels underneath the bars, and the bars already have numbers on top of them. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Just by clicking on the different chart elements and clicking the delete button, I can get rid of those. I can make the chart a little wider. And then on the Keypoint tab with the chart selected, I have a button here for editing labels. And I can turn off the use default text and go in and edit these labels down to something a little more user-friendly. Okay, let's change that to all of these. So now they fit underneath here, but they're still at an angle. If I go into PowerPoint and just drop the font size down a couple of clicks, it puts them nice and neat underneath all of my bar charts, and we'll call that good enough. There's one last thing that I want to do before I jump into the slideshow, but really this is ready to go. Well, actually, there's two more things I'd like to do. Clicking anywhere on the question slide, I get the question options, and one of those options is the correct answer. I can tell Keypoint what that right answer is if I'm going to be using any type of team competition or group competition or something within the presentation, or if I want to just pull scores in a report later to see how people did as far as a grade goes. And also over here under the tools menu are some options. And the one option that I'm concerned with right now is what we call polling feedback. There's a range of different selections here, everything from a tiny little counter that will hide a little number down in the lower corner showing how many people voted, to a grid of people's names or participant IDs that change color as each person responds. I'm going to go ahead and just go with what we call the participant counter and leave it in the bottom right corner of my slideshow screen, and you'll see what that looks like when we get into the slideshow. So with that, I am going to start my slideshow and step through it. So as I get into the presentation, it works just like any other slideshow would. I can step through my bulleted slides showing that creating voting slides inside your PowerPoint presentation, so which you just saw me do, stores all of your data and everything inside the presentation document. Now, you know, you're not uploading any data or anything to the cloud. So that's a nice feature. It also helps with those hybrid events where you're collecting data from keypads as well as collecting data from remote participants as well. And it puts all that together. It supports those wireless radio frequency keypads, like I just said. There's several different styles of those that we support. And it supports web-based keypads. That's what I'm using right now, is I have a web-based keypad on my phone connected, and that's what I'll be using to answer the question. But whenever a question slide is presented, the participants see that question text show up on their remote keypads. You can combine them, as I mentioned, into a hybrid meeting so that you can use both. And we even have some integrations like a WebEx app that embeds the virtual keypad right into the virtual meeting interface. So if you're sharing the screen in a gallery of presenters, the keypad is just a sidebar right inside that meeting interface. So as I bring that question live to the screen, we see that 0 out of 2 participants have responded, and I am going to go ahead and respond with one virtual keypad. And now we can see that 1 out of 2 people have responded, and I'm just going to leave it at that so that you can just kind of see how that flowed. And close the voting, and my next click will bring up the bar chart of the results. And that is it. Everything is all built right into the PowerPoint presentation. I can save all of that data just by saving my PowerPoint file. There are some reports, and I'll go into a different video that explains what each of those reports and things do, as well as things like snapshots and resetting the presentation to run multiple sessions and combining all of that data. Those are a lot of the more advanced features within Keypoint, but at its core, it's clicking that question button, typing some words into your slide, and running your slideshow. It's pretty straightforward.